Ay, nay, 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 So friends, as people adjust themselves and get themselves ready, I always love that when you get ready for meditation, you say get ready, and that's when people begin to move. It's like ready to meditate. So are you ready to sit and listen, everybody? Any more adjusting that needs to happen? Any more chairs? So I'm just going to briefly let you know that when a teacher comes into the room, the Talmud says that it's like a Sefer Torah is coming into the room, and we know what happens when a Sefer Torah comes into the room. You stand up. So I think that I think it would make Tirzah a little bit uncomfortable for that. But I just say to you, so right, I just would say like whatever part of you is energetic and awake enough to stand up, as it were, right? There's a difference between listening in a schlumpy way and listening with awareness. So I just would ask you to take responsibility tonight, because as a teacher, I know that as much as I want to give, it also depends upon the ability of the people to listen and to hear. And when people show up hungry to learn, I know that you're hungry, but hungry to learn also, it changes the frequency in the room in a profound way for the teacher. And so I just want to say that it's a great honor and something that I looked forward to for many, many years, to be able to sit and learn from Reb Tirzah. Reb Tirzah is many, many things and has been many places. A courageous spiritual seeker who began in a very deep Jewish practice and Jewish community and made her way, like me and others, in many, many different places to come back to her Jewish roots and to make great integration between all the various paths that she has traveled. She is considered by many, including myself, to be, if not one of the great students of our teacher, Reb Zalman, Shalom Yalav Shalom, peace be upon him, who really, really received a direct and continual transmission from his lineage and from his presence in many ways. And Tirzah carries that. And I know that whenever I speak to Tirzah, I feel immediately called into a place of deep truth telling and strength all at once. Anyway, enough. I was going to make short, but really, it's an honor, really, mamash bechavod, to introduce Rabbi Tirzah Firestone, Reb Tirzah, to all of us here in the Romemu community.
Good Shabbos. Thank you, Reb David. Please keep eating and ochlim v'sovim, and then we'll nevarech. And the children are very welcome. And welcome to everybody who is online. Welcome to everybody who's here in person. It's an incredible honor to be here with my younger brother, Reb David, and my beautiful, new old sister, Rabbi Diane. Wherever are you? Oh, mwah, mwah. New because we have just met in body recently. So before we begin, I do have my beloved Rebbe here, and we're going to build an ancestral table, ancestral altar over here. So I will place his picture. It's already starting to be built. You'll see it in the back of the room. But Reb Zalman's picture will be here to inspire me. Before we take off, would you join me in just taking a very quick moment? I always teach interactively, so I invite all of us to take a moment and just think about and call in the avot and imahot upon whose shoulders we stand. Who are the teachers, the relatives, in some cases, the spiritual allies whose kindness, love, wisdom got us here to this moment. Let's take a quick moment. We'll go back to that full circle in just a little while. We're going to really populate this room with all these beautiful Heilige ancestors. And I want to say that as we're doing that, wow, what healing. I really felt the klipot, all the masks, all the veils, all the layers that have been accumulating for the last 3 years. This is really my second in-person, since COVID, in-person teaching since for the last 3 years. And it's just, Reb David, thank you so much. And to all the musicians, just, oh, Gewalt. It's like deep, deep. Did everyone feel that? Like the melting away, so beautiful of all the residues of the last 3 years. A lot of residue, a lot of layers that need to be dissolved. Okay. So since we're here, tonight is all about riddles, the riddles of our families, the riddles that land in us, the ancestral search. And I will tell you a story that I got from an old friend, Arthur Kurzweil, who told a story about just a very avid guy. He was trying to put together his genogram, his multi-generational family map, and he's going to the libraries and he's getting online and he's putting this together, and he finds that on both sides of his family, both mother and father side, there's this must be a shtetl. He doesn't know where, and the shtetl is cropping up, the great uncle and the great grandmother and then the aunt and then the stepmother. Unkennauen. Unkennauen. Where is Unkennauen? He's going crazy. He can't find it on any map. He goes to the lead professor at the genealogy department at NYU, and he says, Professor, you've got to find me this place. Where is Unkennauen? He looks at the map. He looks at the map. He looks up. He looks down. He looks up. Arthur, he says, Unkennauen. That's not Unkennauen. That's unknown. So I love that story because there's so much unknown that has landed in us, so much mystery that has landed in us, and yet we know it's here. It's here, it's alive in us, it makes us who we are. It gives us our tendencies, our diseases, our propensity for heavy food, our temper, all of these things are in us. Our ancestors live in us. We're going to get to all that, but first I want to say, in honor of this beautiful, I think we're still in the Shabbat of the Child and still in that orb, and that's a beautiful, beautiful project. In Kabbalah and in Chassidut, it's understood that children, which were, by the way, all of us, once upon a time, we came into the world in clear sight of our tikkun. It's a word that we know from tikkun olam, but each one of us has a tikkun, a riddle, the riddle of our soul. Each one of us comes in with deliverables, and we've got to make good. We make a compact. We make an agreement. I'm here. This is what I'm going to be working on. Some of you are nodding, so you know what I'm talking about. It's like the karmic assignment that we come in with. The Slonimer Rebbe, Shalom Noach Berezovsky, of blessed memory, used to say that each of us has a shlichuto ale admut, our mission. We come in with a mission, our mission in this earthly life. There is no randomness, there's no accidents, there's nothing arbitrary. And whenever you hear somebody like maybe in the new generation saying, it's all, it's just all an accident, like, you've got to counter that. There's no such thing. Of all the 8 billion people on this earth, every single one of us is carrying a piece of the puzzle. And we have to make good on that. However we do that, I feel that this work is part of that. So you see this on kids who come in. You'll probably see kids traipsing in and out tonight. They have a smirk. They have a quirk. they have this kind of intel, right? They have intel, and they know something. Remember that great story that I used to love that story. I'm sure you know it, of the 4-year-old who gets a new sibling, and the baby is brought into the house, and the parents are all anxious that the brother will do something to this newborn, and he slams the door and he goes to the crib, and the parents are like up against the door. Is he going to be okay? And they hear through the door, quick baby, tell me about heaven. I'm already forgetting. I'm already forgetting. So there's a lot that makes us forget in this world. When we get into this earthly life, there's a beautiful name of God, Yodea Ta'alumot. We sang it today in the Anabakoach. Yodea Ta'alumot, the one who knows the riddles. God knows all of the riddles. God is carrying all of our work. And our work is to get through those obfuscations, those obscurations, the veils that fall down over us, that make us forget why we're here, that make us forget what we agreed to deliver during our lifetime. And what is that? What are those obscurations that serve us at home? The poverty that we may have come into, the discrimination, the parents separating, early deaths. Our ancestors, we have been living, by the way, for the last 70 years in relative enormous peace and beauty and dream of like a golden age. But for many of our parents, ancestors, all the way back, there have been many, many, many traumas that have obscured life for us. And those are traumas that could not be alleviated. No one had therapists. They were running for their lives. We see this in the Ukraine now, in the war. People are working with family separations and not knowing when they'll ever see their husbands and brothers and loved ones again. So much so our ancestors were running. Carl Jung, however, and this is the most beautiful piece, thank God that we're embedded with what Carl Jung called the irresistible compulsion and urge to become what we are. The irresistible compulsion to heal ourselves, the irresistible compulsion to sing, to come to a place like this, to pray, to feel the ecstatic, to remember where we came from. And this magnetic force that pulls us to become aware of who we are also reminds us of what we came to deliver, the longings that we have inside. So the inner child is in each one of us, and I want to tell a little story. We're going to go inside in just a moment to connect with that being inside of us, that knowing, the knowing of the inner child inside of us. But I'll tell you a little story. I was raised Orthodox in the Midwest in St. Louis, Missouri. And one of my first memories was walking hand in hand with my father to the Young Israel every Shabbos morning. Okay, how many of you know Young Israel? They didn't daven the way they daven here, let's just say. But it was beautiful unto itself, and on the men's side, it was really gorgeous. Every Shabbos, I would walk with my dad the 1.25 miles to the synagogue, and I would go in the men's entrance. I was very small, and this is where the tallis room, the prayer shawl room, he would pull out his tallis, this huge, voluminous wool tallis, and he would put it over himself. And of course, I was clinging to his knee, and so it was over me as well. And it was beautiful. He would say the bracha, say the blessing, and then I would trail him to a seat, and I would sit next to him on the men's side. And I loved it, the prayers. And I would braid and unbraid endlessly the fringes of his talit. Some of you know, because some of you were there, I'm sure, doing it yourself. One Shabbos morning, I said, Daddy, Abba, I want to run up and down the aisle. I want to sing. I want to take the Torah. I want to dance. Can I go up to the bima? Can I go up? I want to lead. Everybody singing. He looked at me with horror in his eyes. That very moment, he took me by the hand. We stood up. He took me to the wavy blue plastic mechitza, the divider between the men and women, psst, 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 signaled my mother, and handed me over to the women's side. But that, and it was different on the women's side. We won't go into that, but that was a moment, that was a prophetic moment, I think. It was a prophetic moment where something in my neshama bubbled up and said, this. It took me years until I met my beloved Reb Zalman. You see it right here, right? You see it in his face. He gave so many of us the reshut, the permission to live out our inner child's prophetic dream, and a Yiddishkeit that has been made beautiful by all of you and by the rabbis here. I just want to say, I just want to give such a bracha to the leaders here who are fulfilling this profound intergenerational dream of reviving Jewish Yiddishkeit, Judaism, in the 21st century. So in time, I became that little girl. I had that vision, and that's what I did. I founded a shul in Boulder, Colorado, and that's all we did was dance and sing and be ecstatic. So if you would take a moment right now, very, very briefly, whether you're on Zoom, whether you're in the room, and close your eyes or just go inside and invite from your database a picture, a snapshot of yourself sometime before the age of 10. Just see what comes. Allow yourself to be surprised. See what comes. See yourself as a child, a little boy, a little girl. See what picture comes for you. What stands out about that child that you're seeing right now? What stands out? What do you recall about that child? What did that child know before they came into full body, into full life and all of the problems? What do you recall about your own childhood knowing, the knowing? It's just good to anchor ourselves back into that prophetic knowing. Quick, baby, before we forget. Before it becomes the Unkenauen. So we each meet with obstacles. Some of us within days of being born, and some of us a little later. From our parents, our homes, our culture, and now we're getting to the topic of this weekend. The new generation. The new generation, particularly the most sensitive neshamas, the most sensitive ones of a generation, tend to feel a lot, tend to absorb a lot of what's going on at home, of what has been broken, and even way before. Unworked traumas from earlier generations. We absorb them. How many of us in this room just know what I'm talking about because we were the sensitive ones in the generation and we just felt all the dreck from our families. And many of us, I'm looking out, not all, but we each come from our own lineages, but for each family ancestry here and here in the Zoom room, we each have our own story, our own particulars of what we absorbed. I'll just tell you very briefly that I'm the daughter of a mother who escaped Nazi Germany in 1939 on the Kinder transport, and all of her siblings and parents got out, but she left scores of cousins, uncles, and aunts behind who perished in Nazi Europe. Never talked about them. Never. And my father, a kid from Brooklyn, yay, Brooklyn, he enlisted, he knew German, he knew Japanese, he was a linguist, and he was drafted over it into a bomb detection brigade and found himself in Buchenwald upon liberation in 1945, April. And there, he was a kid, right? He was 22 or something, he was a puppy, and he saw the unseeable. He wasn't prepared. He saw what was unseeable, odious things. He never talked about it. I didn't even know that until I read his obituary, until I opened his metal filing cabinet and pulled out a file after he died of those pictures that he took in Buchenwald. Those pictures that he sealed away in the back of that metal filing cabinet were like the image deposits that the traumatologists talk about that get sealed away in us, right? So no, he never talked about it. My mother never talked about it, but did that matter? Of course not, because it came out in mother's milk, it came out in father's temper, it came out in their right-wing politics, in their rigid parenting, in their temper, all of that. It comes out. It comes out. So each of us has our stories. Each of us has our lineages. And the best thing we can do is to steady ourselves and to work on ourselves and to allow these things to come up so that we can heal them. I want to give a quote here from, is it here? From Gabor Mate. Trauma is not, my dear friend and teacher, he says, trauma is not what happens to you. It's what happens inside of you as a result of what happened to you. It's the invisible force that shapes our lives. It shapes the way we live, the way we love, the way we make sense of the world. And I like to say that our biographies shape our biologies. But before we go any farther, we're going to do something, because did you notice the energy in the room changed? And so we want to hop it before it goes too far. To say that, like, everyone take a breath, straighten your body, just, yeah. When we go into this territory, we start to freeze because we all know that there's stuff in the back room, and it's heavy stuff. It doesn't matter if you came from Tanzania, or you came from Ukraine, or you came from Brooklyn. It's we carry things, and the people in this room, we have the privilege, we have the education, we have the opportunity, the sacred opportunity to do this work, but it does take a toll. And so, how many people can see this Yud He Vav He right here? Should I hold it up? Okay. This is a vertical Yud He Vav He. We call it a Shiviti. Some of you who know Hebrew, but you don't have to know Hebrew, see that there's 4 letters, right? So I'm going to teach you a little something. See the top letter? Yud. Okay, it's a little small letter, but it's maybe the most powerful. I want you to close your eyes for a moment. If you know Hebrew, great. If you don't know Hebrew, it doesn't matter. It's Yud. is a little globule of holiness. I want you to put it as a sentry before you, a guard, a guardian before you. In space, it's suspended in space. Protects you. It shines light. It's like a laser beam. It does not allow anything in that doesn't need to be in. It will protect your health, protect your nervous system, and keep you safe. Okay, open your eyes. The yud is hanging in suspense right here in front of you. And what's the next letter? The upper hay, by the way, is different than the lower hay. The upper hay is bina. The upper hay is Em Kol Chai. Close your eyes now and put her to your right. Bring her into your field. She is your right-hand woman. She's the window, but only allows in, the window and the door, she only allows in light and beauty, health, safety, stability. She's watching over you. Take a breath and just feel her. She's very different than the yud, right? Breathe her in to your field. And now open your eyes again. What's the third letter? Vav. The shape of the Vav is just straight. Put Vav at your back, parallel to your spinal column. Lean into the Vav. Feel its vigilance, feel its loyalty, feel its strength. Breathe into that Vav. We are putting ourselves into the four letters. They are our guardians. And the lower letter, open your eyes, you'll see is looks like the same as the second letter. It's not. It's the letter of Shekhinah, goes at your left. So however you like to do this right now, just take a moment. This is actually very, very helpful before we start into talking about trauma stories, which even if they have a really positive ending, everything ends up great, still takes a toll on our nervous system. So you are now, each and every one of us, surrounded by the yud. Say it with me. Yud in front, hey to our right, vav along our spine, hey at our left. We're in an orb of protection, light, caring, blessing, love. Okay. Thank you. Who feels the difference? Okay. Okay. It's important. We're going to be doing some little exercises drawn from Kabbalah, like that, throughout the weekend to help us regulate ourselves. Okay. So we each meet with obstacles along the way. And we know from science now, and we know from clinical studies, what many of us have intuited all along, right? We didn't need epigenetics to teach us this, but some of us did, that there are transmissions of history that come down to us, particularly to those of us who are sensitive and spiritually inclined, which may actually be some of you, and more than some. And the new generation absorbs these things. And extreme life experiences of early generations can be transmitted door to door, right? Door to door service. And the thing to remember now before we do get into some amazing stories is that epigenetic changes, those transmissions are completely reversible. They don't cling, they don't change your genetic structure. They just are functions that will shut you down temporarily until something happens. And that something is agreed upon by all of the traumatologists that I have studied, from Bessel van der Kolk to Yael Danieli to Rachel Yehuda. There is one key that reverses these transmissions, these trauma transmissions. And what is that one key? Anyone want to guess? Name of Hashem. Okay, very good. Anyone else? Naming it. Good. Awareness. It's awareness. Once you get, that's what happened. The dots start to connect. It's like, woo, I got it. And sound effects. And things start to unravel, and you have choice again. You have freedom, the freedom to choose. So I want to tell a couple of stories now. And one uncanny piece of research that I came upon. This is not in my book, Wounds into Wisdom. By the way, those of you who are coming on Sunday will get a book. If you haven't read it, or if you have, you can pass it along, Wounds into Wisdom. But an uncanny piece of research is told by one of the subjects of a colleague of mine, a 30-something-year-old woman, who said this was her first and recurring memory all throughout her childhood. She had it was a dream that she had before she even could talk. Every time she had it, she woke herself up crying. Her mom would rush in, pick her up, rock her back to sleep. And finally, at the age of 4 or 5, she could tell the story of what the dream, this disturbing dream was. And in the dream, this little girl is flying over an old town and comes to a train station. And she sees a man jumping from the platform into the train tracks. And he's taking off after a train. He's running after a train, and he's running and he's running and he's running, and he's so upset, and he's yelling, "Stop, stop, stop." And he can't catch up with the train. And the train gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Well, she tells her mother this dream, and her mother goes, "No." And her mother starts to rock and cry and says, "How could you possibly know that story? No one has ever breathed that story to you. That's the story of my father who you never met. It happened to him in World War II. He came home from the black market with food for his family. The door is open. He comes in. Nobody's home. The Gentile neighbors say, 'Hurry, get to the train station quickly.' They rounded up all the Jews, and he gets there. He running, and he jumps from the platform into the train tracks, and he runs after the train. And of course, he never catches up, and he never sees his family again. In time, he started a new family. That was the product, the mother and the child, but he never healed that story. Now, the beauty of this young woman was that this millennial is that she instinctively knew she had to do something with this dream. She couldn't rely on her family, for goodness sake. And she signed up in a 3Gen survivors group. This is for Holocaust survivor families, 3rd generation, all millennial kids, young people. And curiously, she told my colleague that in her group, her dream was nothing special at all. That dreaming the dreams of ancestors was not at all unusual in this group. It happened all the time. She is fine. She is brilliant. She shone the light of awareness onto this thing that she was born with. Now, science does not encompass this yet. Science tells us a lot, but not yet about dream transmissions. Okay, I want to tell you one more story. It's not only Ashkenazic Jews. We have to be careful not to be Ashkenocentric. And these things are happening all around the world. This is a story of somebody I did work with from Iran. She was actually in utero when her parents escaped in the early 80s. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard had come in. The Shah was deposed. These really vicious people were taking over Iran, also known as Persia. And her parents made it out on donkey carts with big opium, sitting on opium bundles across the border in the middle of the night. They closed up their house. They lived in a big mansion. They were wealthy people with a shopping bag, and rode out of town with a grandmother and grandfather, and made it across to Karachi, and then bribed people and made it to Zurich, and bribed people and made it to Miami. And it's just a long story. And this was a very wonderful, proud tale. Why did this woman, Esti, come to see me? She came to see me because she had a 7-year-old child who had a horrible separation anxiety disorder and couldn't be out of her sight, couldn't be out of sight of her husband or her. And they'd been to every counselor and therapist. And finally she decided, you know what, I'm going to do my own therapy, and I'm going to take care of myself. So I said, well, let's make a family tree. Esti, come on, let's make a family tree. And she had an elaborate family tree on one side and told me this story about their escape from Iran. And I said, what about the other side of the family? She knew nothing. It was Unkenauen all the way. Knew nothing about it. I said, go home and find out what's in it. Anyway, she called me up, and there's screaming and crying in the background, a lot of geschrei. And it comes to be that in asking her parents, what about this side of the family that's not on the family tree? She unearthed a horrible secret. And the secret is that the family packed up and left in total secret, and left a blind 94-year-old grandmother behind in Tehran, never said goodbye, was waiting for this new child, they saw her every day, and all of a sudden nothing. They were afraid that she would tip off the guards, say something. And so they just left town and didn't ever say goodbye. The grandmother, they found out, died shortly thereafter of heartbreak and separation anxiety. Well, there was a huge noise and hubbub once Esti found this out, and she insisted that all the pictures and all the photographs and a memorial was made, and all of this, lots and lots of crying and mourning and eulogies. And 30 years late, and in the other part of the house, this little girl, this 7-year-old child, said, kicking the walls, like, get me to school, get me out of here. And it was as if in 3 weeks' time, her separation anxiety was healed. Strange riddles that aren't always linear, right? This is not a linear thing. You could never have understood that. But in doing the family healing, in grieving the family's loss, in unearthing this huge secret, something else in another part of the family became healed. So I often am asked, what in the last 3 years, by the way, these 3 years have been incredible, incredibly difficult, but also so much connecting online, the explosion in interest in ancestral healing and intergenerational healing all over the world, students in Hong Kong and Japan and Argentina, from all over there. Everyone seems to be opening these channels to the ancestors now, doing the work of clarifying, clearing out these channels to the ancestors. And somebody just asked me, what have you learned from all these years of teaching online all over the world, with students all over the world? And I can only say that the ancestors are really pushing now. They're really pushing now. They are really wanting to be known. They really have help for us. They have guidance. They have all kinds of blessings. And they cannot get through to us unless we open the spigot, unless we open the channels, unless we say yes, unless we invite healing from them and to them. But the wise and the well ancestors are profoundly there for us. And the Unkanoan, we have to reach into these dimensions that Reb Zalman, Zachrono Livracha, used to call the unseen dimensions, and extend our faith and suspend our disbelief and know that there are beings who are trying to help us, who are reaching across, who are pushing at us. That's why we have so many dreams. That's why we have this burgeoning in the collective unconscious now of interest, fascination with epigenetics, with ancestral healing, with intergenerational legacies. So let me close right now. It's Friday night, it's late. I know we want to go home and get refreshed, but before we do, just a very quick little check-in to the Unkanowan, okay? Take a breath and just, if you would, you don't have to close your eyes because you might nod off, but I want you to just invite in now. You invited in a childhood knowing earlier, but with that child present for you, that very sage child, would you invite into consciousness a wise and well loving ancestor right now? Just notice who comes to mind. This could be your third grade teacher. This could be a Rebbe. This could be a father, mother, grandfather, grandmother. It could be an old friend, someone who died early. Just open your field. Don't try, don't grab. Just take a breath. Remember the holy letters surrounding you and see who wants to come. Allow yourself to be surprised who wants to come. It may be more than one. Try to keep it to one or two. Who is in your wings, so to speak, right now, burgeoning, pushing, wanting to help. And if you have somebody who's appeared, go one step farther. Don't worry if nobody came. Don't worry. Someone will come. But if you have someone who has appeared, go one step farther. Ask them your question without words. Just say, here I am. Hineni, what have you got for me tonight? Just one little gesture, one little transmission of wisdom, a smile, a word, an eitzah, piece of advice. What does this being want you to know? Breathing and grounded, feeling the holy letters around you, protecting you. Just welcome in the unknown dimension of the ancestors. And receive their blessing, receive that smile, receive that word. And then when you're ready, allow them to recede. And wheel your toes. When you're ready to come back fully, rub your hands together. Place that warmth on your face, on your chest, on your belly, where it feels good. So we place ourselves, my friends, into an orb of sacred protection for this weekend. And I'm so honored to be here with you as we do this sacred work. I truly don't know what will come for you or for me for this holy, heilige kahal, this very, very holy kahal. I feel like we've all been through so much these last 3 years, Gevalt. I feel like we've aged 6 years, not 3, that our communities have taken hits, our health has taken hits. We've really, this is the beginning. This is the beginning of deep healing, my friends. Deep healing begins now. And we ask the unseen realms to provide their blessing. Thank you so much. And good Shabbos. I wish all of us a really good shluffy tonight. And thank you. We have just a few minutes left. Reb David, should we take a couple of questions? No biographies, just very brief, maybe 2 questions. Is that okay? Please say your name. Shira.
I loved your story about the child who was having separation anxiety, and the mother did her own work. I love the saying, "Get your own house in order before you can help somebody else." You have to have your own house in order. But my question is, when we do, really from the scientific perspective and the research angle on it, when we do that, the transformation on the epigenetics level, right? When we really unpack what we've inherited and we bring it to consciousness and we transform it, we consciously work at it, we have guides, we stay with it, we really work it. Does it pay forward to our children's epigenetic inheritance?
Excellent. You may be, is this on? You may be a grandmother already, right? So what do you mean? I'm not having children anymore. That question gets asked all the time, but this is another one of those mysteries, and I've seen this countless times with my students. It's called the morphogenic field of a family, where one person starts to change and wake up. And there are ripples, it's these unseen Unkanawan ripples that start to travel. Your kids might live in South America, it doesn't matter. They are picking up on that waking up that happens. It's like little Shiraz was like, didn't have anything to do with what was going on the other side of the house with her crazy adult relatives, but she got well. So there is this, it's magical. I don't think it's linear. It's hard to explain. And this is that place where science and mysticism sort of intersect, and difficult to say more than science is beginning to talk about the morphogenic field that is the resonant field of a family that starts to shift.
Thank you.
A wonderful question. Zehu, are there any other question? While Jeff is taking the mic around, I do want to say that, Reb Joseph Telushkin, so happy to see you here.
Yeah.
Can you want to use a, no, mic.
You had, I don't even know. That fascinating,
I'll repeat it.
okay, that fascinating story you told us about the 94-year-old grandmother left behind in Iran. How did it end up having a positive effect on the child? Because I could imagine it having a very unpositive effect, knowing that her family had what they had done. It's understandable, but Explain to me.
Yeah, the 32-year-old was appalled. The 32-year-old mother was appalled. The 7-year-old didn't know what was going on, and she didn't really care. She was 7. But she had this, again, this acausal, non-local, you could say, benefit from it. She was the beneficiary of the fact that the family was finally doing their work. Because when secrets are pushed down subliminally, pushed under the floorboards, how many of you know what I'm talking about? That there are family secrets, and the parents don't want to tell because they don't want to disturb the child, and they don't want to say anything, and it's just unpleasant, and it brings it up, and they don't want to scar the children for a million reasons. Parents want to protect their child, but the psychic energy, especially something like this, where there was a lot of guilt, horrible guilt, got pushed down, and so it comes out sideways, and it becomes, it's like it ferments underneath, and it becomes pathogenic, is the word that I use. In the same way, I would say for my own parents, the horrors that they did not tell came out sideways, and that came out in all kinds of sorrows. So by the same token, do we want to traumatize our kids? God forbid, with too much information. But we don't want to, the more psychic energy that's used to push something down, that psychic energy becomes pathological. Does that help? Yeah, thank you. I'm so honored that you're here, Rabbi Yosef. Yisrael Yosef. One more, anyone from this side of the room? Anybody? Or just a comment? Yes, please. I do not. Hold on, let everyone hear what you're saying. It
A
sounds.
book by Dr. Ian Stevenson. He's from the University of Virginia, and he did a lot of research on thousands of cases. He wrote a book called 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation. And I think everybody should read that book. But there's Dr. Brian Weiss. There's a person that I know personally who wrote a book about my family, whose name is Rigler, Sarah Yoheved Rigler. And she wrote a book on reincarnation from the Holocaust.
Okay, good.
There are over 100 cases in it. Okay, I just want to let you know
That's
that.
very, very good. Now, this is another really important question. It's implicit in what's your name? Eddie.
Eddie.
In Eddie's comment, which is so excellent, this is not reincarnation, and I'll tell you why. If you try to work with intergenerational legacies and reincarnation, you will get cross-eyed within 10 minutes. It will scramble you so badly because what we do in the ancestral healing is try to work with something that we can actually, that is more evidence-based. In Kabbalah, does everybody know that in Kabbalah there is such a thing as Gilgulim? We understand about reincarnation. It is a thing, right? It is a thing, but this is different because reincarnation is so rarely, maybe in this one book, so rarely evident. Okay, good. I stand corrected, but nevertheless, you'll see the intergenerational healers that are out there right now. Try to keep the two separate because it will scramble you. Because think about that, the generations, Dora Lador, but incarnation could be centuries between incarnations and not necessarily biological antecedents, right? So epigenetics doesn't really pertain, although it could, not epigenetics, but there is traces of physical qualities. It's a fascinating and perplexing question you're raising. Very good, though. There are answers to everything. That's true. Thank you, Reb David.
Yeah, I just
It's
wanted.
9:59.
It's 9:59. It's so good. So I just want to say, the question, the way that the question was phrased and the way that you answered was really vital, I think, for all of us. I think that to some extent, if you look at the reincarnational material that you just quoted, the Kabbalah material, you will see that, like Isaac Luria, who was considered to be like a physician of the soul or a healer, he would often say that a present day symptom is a kind of working through of a transgenerational phenomena that could be very much related to reincarnation, right? So it could be that there's something needing to be worked through. But what you were saying is that's all fine and good and it kind of looks similar. But for us to work on it, maybe those masters can work on it on their own. But for us to work within epigenetics is very rare. We have to stick to like the evidence and what comes, and that's really a vital piece. Guys, amazing, right? Unbelievable. Thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure that you know, would you lead us in the Bircha Hamana, or do you want to just do Bircha Hamana or some?
We also have dessert.
Yeah, I want to say one thing, and this beautiful jewel is sitting in the back with an orange turban, and Ilana Brody is someone who is new and old, also sister, who is assisting this weekend. And she just happened to be plucked out by Reb David tonight and pulled up onto the bima, but she is going to be assisting our workshop to tomorrow and all Sunday with music and beauty. And I hope that Rabbi Diane will be there too, and somewhat Reb David, although we're trying to give him a little time off. Anyway, so happy to have you, Ilana. Okay, what's your minhag? Brich Rachamana Malka Dialma Mare Dehai Pita Brich Rachamana Malka Dialma Mare Dehai Pita. Holy Shechina, we give you such thanks for this beautiful night, this hallelujah night, this balancing to all of the tsaros that we've been coming through, the Mitzrayim that we came through. And I give such profound thanks for Romemu and for this kahal and for its leadership and for all of you holy souls that stayed up till 10 o'clock on a Friday. Gewalt. This is a special crew. We'll see you in the morning for davening, open book, and
Dessert in the back.
dessert.
Dessert is served. Yummy cakes here in the back.
Wow, thank you. Good Shabbos.